This is your host Swapnil Bhartiya, and welcome to another episode of TFiR Newsroom. And today we have with us once again Kit Merker, Chief Operating Officer at Nobl9. Kit, it's great to have you on the show.
Great to see you. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, and once again, there is so much to talk about. The focus is going to be Nobl9 replay. Before we talk about it in specifically, let's talk about give us an update what's going on in SLO's world.
It's amazing. Service level objectives, which we're completely focused on, have become even more important to customers. We've announced new capabilities and new customers, like we announced Procore recently as a new customer of Nobl9. And what we're finding is that with the pressure, and I'm sure you see this in the market as well, the economic pressure, the uncertainty, the layoffs, everything is pointing to teams needing to do more with less. And it turns out that SLOs are actually a great tool for this because it helps you think more creatively about how to focus your resources. Right? We want to focus on customers. We want to work on the things that are going to have an impact to our business and our bottom line. And so what we're seeing is that customers are actually coming to us and saying, "Okay, help us figure out how can we reduce the amount of money we spend on observability? How can we make our team more productive, as we may have smaller teams, or we need to refocus them on innovation? Help us optimize our cloud bill and make sure we're provisioning our resources correctly." And so the power of automation, especially SLOs, because really the capability that we're talking about, this is why it's so valuable, is why companies like Google and Netflix and others have adopted this for a long time before Nobl9 was ever on the scene. The SLO approach is really about that focus and taking data, and really about getting proactive. Instead of staring at charts, waiting for things to break, we can go code because we can be confident that our reliability burn down is going to alert us and bring our attention to it at the right level. And that is really, I think, a powerful thing. So I'm really excited about what SLOs can do. We're seeing still tons and tons of more interest, and also surprisingly, I think the larger enterprises that are really questioning, their approach, as they're embracing platform engineering. They're looking at how to kind of evolve their digital transformations into actual, digital business. They're putting SLO initiatives in place, and so we've been supporting that with our open source efforts as well as our products. So yeah, it's really exciting times.
So if I ask, today once again, what do you see I want to ask about the awareness of SLOs. Do you still have to go and tell, hey, this is what, or you feel that no, there's enough awareness? All people are now asking is more efficient tools.
It's a great question, because I think there's been a significant shift in the last year, and I think part of that is just the general awareness of the community, and how people have kind of embraced this technique. Um, and we're not the only vendor who's talking about SLOs, which is also great. So there's a good view there. There's analysts that are covering the space. So there's kind of I think a general awareness. I was talking to one of our solution engineers at Nobl9 recently, and he said he hasn't had a customer who'd never heard of SLOs on a call in quite some time. I think over a year. He said he hadn't had somebody who just had no idea what we were talking about. It might be because we're being more targeted, but I think it also points to a more general awareness of SLOs. And your point about the naming, there's been quite a bit of I would say discussion about platform engineering as this kind of DevOps is dead and all this kind of stuff. And my take on it is actually pretty straightforward. I think that, like you said, these are different names for similar things. I think where the platform engineering is differentiating itself, and why I think it's kind of popped up recently, is a concept of ownership. Okay, the idea that do you own reliability? Do you own productivity? Or can you own a platform? And one of the cool things about platform engineering as an approach is that you're actually building a thing, right? That is an asset of the company. It's a running system, and it might include manual tasks. It can include know-how. It includes a lot of DevOpsy looking stuff, right? And reliability engineering looking stuff. But if I think about that as almost a product within my company that's enabling all of my services, all my applications, all my APIs, I can actually point to owners of that system. I can have a product manager who's thinking about how do I sequence the features of our internal platform, and then how do I build it efficiently? And I think I'll also say your point about the new normal. Cost cutting is actually a pretty challenging thing to do, right? You just say, hey, let's just go cut costs. The question is, like, how do I cut costs in such a way that it positions me for efficient growth? Where's the waste, right? Where am I wasting time, wasting money? And where can I cut that is going to actually be a smart cut, right? Where customers are not going to see that all of a sudden my website slowed down by 50%, right? Or all of a sudden, we're having these, significant delays in how we release software, or we're having too many meetings because we don't have the data. Those kinds of efficiencies, I think, is what's going to separate the companies that come out of these difficult times stronger versus the ones that continue to struggle or kind of waste money on things that are not the most important. I mean, focus is the name of the game. So I think that's kind of my takeaway on where things are going now, as people are, using these times as a very strong, I would say, rationale for looking closely, right, at what people are doing, what they're responsible for, how do we do more with less, and how do we make sure that we're positioning ourselves for excellent customer service, right? Continuing to deliver an excellent product, because we still care a lot about the top line, even more so when customer budgets are constrained, right? And one company's cost cutting is another person's revenue loss, right? In this ecosystem that we live in, when people are looking at those questions, you got to have a really strong argument. So you want to be able to say, here's what I'm responsible for. Here's how it's driving the top line. Here's how it's driving the bottom line. And again, I think SLOs fit perfectly into that, especially as we're translating the engineering activities, whether those are development or operations, release management, any of it, translate into a business context of serving customers and making sure we have the efficiency. So yeah, I couldn't agree with you more. This is the new normal, and we're happy to be here supporting it for sure.
Talk a bit about how does replay, no pun intended, plays into this discussion that we just had.
We're incredibly excited by this feature, and maybe to illustrate the value of it, I'll start with a quick story. I was building I was writing a blog, and I wanted to show the comparison of two SLOs, one that was calendar aligned and one that was rolling window. And this is the kind of the idea. So I asked one of my solution engineers, hey, can you go mock this up for me? And he goes, oh my God, it's going to take me 3 weeks to get the data. I got to sit here, collect the data, and produce these two charts, because I don't have one that's exactly what you're asking for. And I said, okay, but don't you have access to Replay, the development environment? He goes, oh. 45 minutes later, he sends me the screenshot ready to go, ready to put in the blog. Okay, and I got it out that day. I got the blog out that day. And this is the difference. What Replay does is it lets you look back in time. It lets you point to a data source, and you can build an SLO on your existing data. So there's a couple of really interesting parts of this. One is, you have an idea for an SLO. You already have the SLI, the service level indicator data, in your upstream systems like Datadog or Prometheus or Splunk, and you want to build an SLO on that. Normally, without Replay, you'd be waiting, right? You'd start it up and you'd wait for the data to accumulate. And that's fine. And that's the way, kind of the state of the market. Now you can look back 30 days, you have it instantly at your fingers, and you can see if you did it. Now, the second use case is also really important, which is debugging. Let's say that you create an SLI query. I don't know if you've ever made an imperfect query before, or written something that was not quite right the first time. This is why we have editing and things like that. People don't get it right the first time. That's okay. That's part of the process. So now I built an SLI query to create an SLO. I realized that it's not exactly what I wanted. I can go back and recreate it, and now I can update the data that was already collected before. So now I've got a really cool way to quickly be way more productive, get that fast feedback loop, and really work at that developer speed. And then the final one I think is really important to understand is about migration. People move between different observability tools and different stacks all the time. And what Replay lets you do is really kind of mock up what that data would look like in two systems side by side, right? So you can now kind of collect the data from one and the other, compare the two, tweak it, make sure the queries match, and get that debugging cycle working, and not have to wait a long time to go back and say, okay, what happened over the last month? I forgot what happened. So I think it's incredibly powerful. We want to make sure people are super productive. This is the most important thing. Fast feedback loops. This goes back to our point before. You want to be efficient with your time. You don't want to sit around waiting for things to happen. You want to be proactive about it. And so this plays perfectly into that strategy. It's a cool piece of tech. We spent a lot of energy building it, and customers love it. And we actually launched a video that you can go check out. It's kind of our launch day video. We decided to do a virtual event, and rather than invite people, we just pre-recorded it. But we have a demo and an overview, some customers and our friends talking about how they're using it. It's really cool. So definitely want to check that out.
What role do you think technologies like Replay are once again going to in helping folks with the whole observability and monitoring, tool or culture?
I think one of the things that I've found in the journey, we spent a lot of time talking to organizations about how they adopt SLOs. We've created something called the Slow Development Lifecycle. I think I've talked to you about it before. And Slow DLC is an open source set of templates that kind of articulates this lifecycle. But one of the things we find with organizations is about that feedback loop. If it takes a long time and you're rolling something out and you start to take weeks and months, and there's a lot of meetings and things like that, definitely slows down the pace of adoption. And the pace of adoption and innovation is what really is the key thing, right? What we're all trying to do now. We're trying to move faster and not waste time. So to me, Replay, SLOs, Nobl9, Slow DLC, OpenSLO, OpenTelemetry, all these tools are making it easier for organizations to more fully embrace modern development practices, where they spend more time coding than meeting. They spend more time slacking each other, doing pull requests, doing things in the tools and making it a system of record as opposed to having chats. And look, chats are important. We want to talk about stuff too, but pulling up an SLO chart in the meeting and being able to say, okay, I'm annotating this outage and saying, we saw what happened. I'm going to explain it once. Some other person in my team looks at it 3 weeks later. They see the annotation. They don't need to ask me what happened. They now have the context. And I think this is the big thing, right? We're trying to build context for people. We want them to understand how the different pieces, different observability tools, cloud applications, services, APIs, how they fit together toward a goal, towards serving a customer and building a business. Without that context, it ends up getting lost in discussion in the hallway. And we know the hallway right now doesn't really exist, right? Like companies are getting back together in person, but you have to find a way to bring visibility to that, and being able to do it asynchronously in a central place that's stored and well articulated and defined as code. It really sets the bar for what a modern productivity tool needs to be. That's how people expect a system like that to work. And so we've designed Nobl9 all around those principles. And I think that's why it's getting the adoption that it is. So that's hopefully that answers your question.
Kit, once again, thank you so much for once again sharing your insights about SLOs and also sharing more information about this new Nobl9 replay tool. It's always a pleasure to talk to you, and I look forward to our next edition, Arlene. Thank you.
Thanks for having me. Great to see you, Swapnil. Take care.